Hello everybody. In this video we will cover bones of the upper limb. Now your upper limb is a part of your appendicular skeleton. So your appendicular skeleton include your upper limbs and lower limbs, and it also include bones that make your shoulder and make your hip. Right? Those bones that make your shoulder, actually two bones over here, the clavicle and scapula. So you can palpate your scapula, you can palpate your clavicle. And these two bones form what we call pectoral girdle. Right? And then you have one bone over here, it's called humerus. You have two bones into your antebrachial region, radius and ulna. And radius is lateral, it's where your thumb is. So give thumb for a radius, thumb for a radius. So you have radius and ulna. And then you have bones of your hand. And they include carpal bones, that's your wrist, metacarpal bones that make your palm, and phalanges that make your fingers, right? So let's go ahead and look at these bones. So that's a clavicle. This one is scapula. This is humerus. So humerus has nice round part over here. This is head of the humerus. This bone, it looks a little bit like a nail. This is radius. And this part that look like a head of nail, it's a head of radius. So that's a radius. And this bone is ulna. It has this notch and it look like U. So U should remind you ulna. So ulna, radius, humerus, clavicle, and scapula. And then we have bones of the hand. We will look at these bones in a minute. Right, so let's assemble our upper limb. So when you look at the scapula, you see the one part is pretty flat, and on another side you have this bony structure. This is called spine of the scapula. And now you see how spine continues with this process, right? So that's a process over here. This is called acromion, right? And you have another process, and this is called coracoid process. Now this cavity is glenoid cavity. Now when you have the spine, this is posterior part of the scapula. So when you palpate your scapula, you can palpate this spine. Okay. So if I put scapula like this, the glenoid cavity faces to a lateral side, right? So that will be lateral side over here. So scapula is part of the pectoral girdle. Another bone that form pectoral girdle is clavicle. So if you look at a clavicle carefully, you will see that one end is flat. It's more flat. And another one look like a little pyramid. So this flat part is called acromial end. And remember, we have acromion. Acromion continues with spine. So spine and acromion. And we have acromial end. So acromial end will form joint with acromion. So it's form joint like this. So you will, if you, I don't know if you can see it on my camera because it's not the best camera, but there is like a little flat part over here, a faucet, and there is a flat part on a clavicle, and they match over here. Right, so we form this acromioclavicular joint. And clavicle goes toward the anterior part, right, like this. And scapula is on the posterior. Right, so I'm gonna leave the scapula here. Now this is glenoid cavity, and glenoid cavity form joint with head of humerus. So if you look at the humerus, the round part is the head, and it's a proximal part, and it fits inside this glenoid cavity like this, forming your shoulder joint. So it's a ball and socket shoulder joint. Now on the distal side of a humerus, if you look over here, so let's orient ourselves. Now this is head, and head is medial, so it's like that. Right. So head is medial, it fits inside glenoid cavity. Now if you look at distal part, on one side you can see like this 1, 2, 3, even like let's say 4 bumps. You can prominently see them very well, right? Prominent bumps. On the posterior side, you see huge fossa. So when you see huge fossa, that's the posterior side, right? So now on the anterior side, one bony part over here is round, right? This one, so it's most lateral part. So that's a medial. Remember, that's medial. So that's lateral. So the most lateral part is a round bony structure called capitulum. Then this structure over here called trochlea. So capitulum and trochlea. And it's important because we're gonna use these landmarks to form elbow joint. Right, so here's your shoulder joint, glenoid cavity, humerus. And on the distal part, we will take radius, and head of the radius articulates with capitulum. So remember, radius is your lateral bone, and ulna, where you have this U, it will articulate with trochlea. Let's see. Like this, with trochlea. And this notch is called trochlea notch. So we have trochlea right here, and trochlea fits inside its trochlea notch, making your elbow joint. So I'm gonna leave, and that's a radius. Right, so this is our articulation. Seems like, let's see. Now, if you look at distal part, the radius and ulna, they have this bony projections over here. Those are called styloid processes. So radius has a styloid process, and ulna has styloid process. So styloid processes are pointing away from one another, right? So they're like this, right? Okay. So now we're gonna make joint. I'm gonna leave it here with the hand. So when you look at the hand, so on one side, you will see two bony structures sticking up, this one and this, and that shows you that this is your anterior part. On the other side, you don't see anything sticking towards you. So that's our posterior side, right? So that's anterior side. Now these bones over here are called carpal bones, and we have 8 of them, and they are in 2 rows, a proximal and distal row. So we have 8 of them. Let's find them first. This is your pollex, right? Or your thumb, right? So that's a pollex. So we're gonna count starting with the pollex. So this bone right here, this bone right there, this is called scaphoid, right? Then next to it, this one is called lunate. So 1, 2. Then this one over here is triquetrum. And just on the top of triquetrum, there is a pisiform. So this is the proximal row. And then we go back to the thumb. Right underneath the thumb, we have trapezium. Next one, like a small one, is trapezoid. This is capitate. And this one that has this hook coming up, this is hamate. I'll be right back. Let me get the pointer. Right, so I'm back. So again, let's count. We need to find 8 bones. And we're gonna start with pollex. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then, so that's 4, starting with kind of like a bigger one with this right there. And then distal row, 1, 2, 3, right in the middle, pretty big bone here, and 4, the one that has this hook. So there is a mnemonic how to remember those bones, starting with the scaphoid. And mnemonic is thumb, lovers, try, positions, and you go back to thumb, that they cannot handle, right? So we have thumb, scaphoid, lovers, lunate, try, this one, triquetrum, position, pisiform, that, start with T, trapezium, they, trapezoid, can't, capitate, and hamate. So scaphoid means a boat, and it does look like a boat. Scaphoid. Lunate means moon, so you have a boat and a moon. Triquetrum means triangular. Pisiform means pea, like a green pea. Now thumb rhymes with trapezium, then trapezoid, capitate, like a capital of your country, capitate in the middle, and hamate means hammer. Right, and then these bones over here are your metacarpal bones. Metacarpal are easy. We abbreviate them MC, metacarpal, and we give them numbers, starting with pollex. MC1, MC2, MC3, MC4, and MC5. And then we have phalanges. Now, digit 1, your thumb or pollex has 2 phalanges, and digits 2, 3, 4, and 5, each one has 3 phalanges. Now we look at phalanges and we call them proximal. So proximal, 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 proximal phalanges. This distal, 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 right? So we have 5 proximal, 5 distal, and we have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 middle phalanges, right? Okay, so see if I can now put this upper limb again together. So glenoid cavity, head of humerus, radius to the capitulum, ulna to trochlea, and then radius gonna articulate with the biggest bone, that is scaphoid. So radius gonna articulate with scaphoid, and yeah, that's our upper limb. So I'm gonna assemble it, and I'll, well, as well as I can, and I'm gonna lift my camera. It's actually my laptop. I need to buy a better camera, and I'll try to show you. Right here. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope this video was helpful. See you next time.